Hello, mixtresses and mixters. This is Mixtress Ray, and you're watching Mixtress Video. So in May, I had a bit of a debaucherous, this was my card of the month for May, and I had a bit of a debaucherous, as this card might suggest. I keep like privately to myself and my friends, and apparently now publicly, calling it a relapse. I have not gone outside of my budget restrictions that I've set for myself for 2022. I haven't broken my budget rules, but I did alter my budget rules that ultimately in the long run, month to month, it's going to be a little bit stricter going forward, but without going into all the details, this change led me to temporarily having a surplus of money. And I spent pretty much all of it in May. So instead of doing a May favorites, to be honest, I haven't had a lot of favorites this month, because I've spent most of the month seeking. I've spent most of the month looking for things to buy and purchasing things. And I have spent quite a lot of money in May. And this is probably going to end up, I don't know what I'm going to title this video, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's, titled something like Tarot Capitalism Part 4 of however many, I don't know. But for me personally, spending a lot of time shopping is not what I want to be doing. And I definitely did that in May. May is a month that it has a lot of anniversaries of tragedy for me. And so I definitely was trying to cope with emotions by spending money. So basically I have a stack of decks to my right here that's almost as tall as this fucking table. All acquisitions in May. So instead of a May favorites, I'm just gonna show you all the fucking tarot and oracle decks I bought in May and tell you how I feel about the entire thing. Tell you how I feel about the decks themselves. Tell you how I feel about, the fact that I did this whole thing, Okay. So very, very beginning of May, I bought Margaret Peterson Tarot. This is a deck that is, it's like my most highbrow deck. It's like fine art deck. It's very abstract. I gotta tell you, I don't fully understand it. Cards like this are so breathtaking. Like, to be honest, I feel like, and it took the artist, Margaret Peterson, it took her 21 years to create this deck. And I honestly feel like when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing the decline of an artistic mind. And that sounds worse than it is. I don't mean decline in that, like, I think she completely lost it by the end, because there's definitely intention in every single image, but a lot of the minor arcana in particular, because I believe she probably did the majors first. I know she started with the Fool and then she kind of went out of order from there, but I feel like she did the majors first, and maybe even she did the court cards next, because they all seem very clear, very intentional. Some, like this is the card she started with, the Fool. Clear, intentional. It's not like I need to have pure representational art, but there's so many breathtaking cards. Like, look at this Death card. But there's a huge difference between like this Death card and this other one. These look like art styles from two different artists, but it's the same woman. Just, I feel like she must have gone through something, or, and it describes in the guidebook, she describes how, like, she would get upset and think that she wasn't portraying the cards properly, and she would scratch off all the art on the canvas, and then she would start it over. And you can see that. You can see how many times she went through and scratched it off and did it again. And I think this deck is potentially brilliant, but it is very challenging to work with. Not only because you're not seeing representational images a lot of the time, but also because I see that. I see that sort of like madness that led her to being dissatisfied with her work and scratching it all off the canvas. And I think truly, even if I hadn't read the introduction in the guidebook, I would have maybe not been able to say, oh, she scratched all of this paint off, but I would have been able to see the emotions, So it's a very challenging deck to work with, and being that I have acquired a lot of decks in May, I have not worked with it much, because every time I get it out and pull like a card of the day or something like that, I get overwhelmed. And ultimately, I think it's overwhelmed in a productive way, but this is going to be the kind of deck that I can only take in small doses, and I'll be putting it away and then going back to it. It'll be like exposure therapy, because every time I get it out, I'm able to look at it a little bit longer and appreciate it a little bit more. But the experience that the artist had making the deck will always be in my mind. And not just the experience that she herself describes, but also the experience that I can tell that she had by looking at it. You know what I mean? And I don't know yet. I'm on the fence about, like, is this a good thing for my tarot practice or is it not? I mean, I think this is one that I'm definitely going to keep around longer than other decks that I might not be having a totally good connection with right off the bat. Like, most of the time, if I don't connect to something immediately, it's gone. But this one, there's a connection. I'm just not sure if it's how productive it is. So yeah, all that being said, I know I'm going to keep this one around for a while. It's going to take me longer to decide how I feel about it. Then the second deck that I bought, right around the exact same time, I keep it in this Gothmancy bag, is Cosmic Tribe Tarot. And here's the guidebook. This is, if I were doing a favorites of May, this would be on it. I am in love with this deck. It's, anyway, you can hear all of my thoughts on it on one of my previous videos. I don't need to go into it right now. But it doesn't take itself too seriously, but the seriousness that it does portray it's just, I mean, I hate to say such a cliche term, but it's just love and light. It's coming from love. It's, the term, I originally heard it on Buffy and I had never heard it anywhere else. Techno-pagan. This guidebook actually describes this sort of ethos of the author of this deck and the ethos of the deck in general as being techno-pagan. Like, it's just such a specific late 90s cheesy vibe. This is the creator of the deck, actually. Stevie Postman? Yeah. It's just so, I'm in the vibe right now of it's so bad it's good historical decks, and this is definitely a keeper for sure. I love it. So I'm going to lovingly put it back where it belongs in my little box over here, my little holder. And this is going to have to go back on my shelf. Okay. Then this next one was actually gifted to me. So this wasn't part of my purchasing behavior this month. This was gifted to me by BB over at, what is her channel called? Red Velvet? Pure Red Velvet. So new channel, Pure Red Velvet. BB gave me Voyager Tarot. This is another one that, like, kind of exposure therapy. Like, it's hard for me to take this one all in. So I've been getting it out, spending a little bit of time with it, and then putting it up. It's not been a daily draw deck for me yet. Like, I've tried to make it a daily draw deck, but I haven't made it more than a day or two with it so far. And I've only had it at this point for maybe a week. So most of these actually, because up to, when did I get I think I got Voyager Tarot like a week ago. So almost all of the decks that I'm showing you are really acquisitions within the last week or two. Everything else that I'm going to show you, I have gotten in the last week and a half. Because this one came into my possession, I think, last Wednesday. And as I tape this, it's, or last Thursday. Came into my life last Thursday. And as I tape this, it's Friday. So yeah, it's been 8 days since I acquired this deck. I know that this is one of those so bad it's good historical decks that is my vibe right now. And it's a collage deck, which I love. Traditional collage. So I know that this deck and I are going to have a relationship. I know. I don't think it's going to be as soulmate based as I feel about Telesma, but, sorry, putting things back so I'm bumping the tripod. But I do think that it's going to be a good relationship. Because again, this is coming, this fucking big ass book is coming from such a cheesy 90s. It's not even 90s though. It came out in the 80s. This is an 80s cheesy hippie dude vibe, and I am definitely here for it for sure. But I think it's going to require a little bit, it requires attention. You know, it's not like a deck you can wrap your head around easily. It requires attention. Then also last Thursday, I ended up receiving 3 decks last Thursday in the mail. And one of them is Eternal Crystals. I've already edged it. I pretty much do that shit immediately though. I haven't found the right color for Voyager yet, so I haven't edged it. But it is just, it's not an old deck, but it is like a so bad it's good kind of situation in my opinion. Because it's just, this is the kind of thing, like if I ever saw this around, I wouldn't want it. But it's actually really, really good. It's, you know, it's got the crystal, it's got, you know, keyword, and it's got the chakra association. So it's really great for, especially for client readings, which is what I'm mostly going to be using this deck for. See the link below. I just recently changed my shop. I don't have an Etsy. Well, my Etsy is just, I haven't officially closed it yet. I just put it on vacation mode with like a little note to where my readings are now. I found like a free shop portal situation that I can put the HTML link in, or HTML coding stuff into like a blog post on my blog, which if you go to mixtressray.com, it just goes to my old Blogspot blog. So essentially, if you just click on tarot readings, when you go to my mixtressray.com, if you just click on tarot readings in the upper left, it goes to this particular blog post that has my little shop portal in it. So because Etsy wanted to, some tax laws have changed in the United States, and Etsy wanted my like social security number and tax information and stuff like that. And also they take so much of your profits that, like, in order for it to really be worth it for me, I was going to need to make my prices higher, and I didn't want to do that. So anyway, the new way that you can get readings from me is not Etsy anymore, but it's still like my readings are listed as like particular readings, and you just pay through PayPal, and it all pretty much works the same. Anyway, so that's a change that I made this month. But anyway, this deck is just, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. And I know enough about, like, I don't have a huge rock collection, but I know enough about rocks and their different properties. And so it's a good jumping off point for me in like client readings, especially because if I have a particular association with a certain rock, then I can use my associations that I have with that rock. And then it has the keyword, and then it has the chakra as well. So it's got a lot of jumping off points for synthesizing a reading together when you're doing a reading for someone. Then that same day, I got another deck in the mail. On my wish list is the Animal Wise Tarot by Ted Andrews. I don't know if I'll ever, I'm sure I will end up with it at some point, but right now, because it's out of print, it sells for ridiculous prices. I don't have the guidebook in here right now, but I just put the cards in the box just to kind of show you what it was. But this is just a cheesy ass bird deck. And I love birds. I call myself the bird mad girl. That's a reference to a Cure lyric. And eventually I will have that tattooed, possibly on my knuckles, Bird Mad Girl. Because that's also kind of the title of the theme of my tattoos. So I've already edged it. I think I did a pretty good job like matching this sort of blue that's in the feathers. The cardstock is so crappy. Like, as you can see, it's that kind of cardstock that was probably in like a big sheet and then you just punched out the cards. So you can see through them. It's crappy, but and I haven't really gotten into the guidebook yet. I haven't really been I thought I would immediately start doing daily draws with this deck, but just to be honest, I am just a little overwhelmed at the moment since I've acquired so many decks all at the same time. And I don't know why. I know better than to do that to myself, but I still did it. So this one hasn't gotten a lot of love yet, but I also think this one will be a great deck to work with. I say that about a lot of Oracle decks because I don't use Oracle decks that often personally, but for myself, but yeah. It's funny because Meg was telling me about this deck because she has it, and I was asking her like what birds were in it. It was like listing birds that were important to me to see if they were in it. And I almost asked her, yeah, but does it have a red-winged blackbird? But I didn't ask her because I thought surely it's not going to have a red-winged blackbird, but it does. I mean, it's just a little baby deck. It has like 40 cards or less, I think. And does it say on the back how many? Yeah, it's 40 exactly. And the pictures are bad. I mean, it's basically the same format as Animal Wise, except this is still in print. And it's probably still in print because I think this is the first printing. It's still in print because like nobody wants it, and it didn't sell out like Animal Wise because no one really wants it, I think is what happened. Yeah, this is the first edition, came out in 2009. So still available on Amazon if you guys are interested in a cheesy ass bird oracle. So I'm happy with this, but I haven't really dove into it yet, which I should forgive myself because I've had it for a week and a day. This is a deck that I will not be using it for client readings. Most likely, I don't think. and it's a reacquisition. It's one that I had before and I felt weird about having it being a white person, but it does at least have some involvement from indigenous Native American heritage people and person in particular, Marcella Lobos. But this is Mystical Shaman. This is one that I bought back in 2019 and I got rid of it. And I did find it again used on eBay for a very reasonable price. So, and I've been wanting something like this and I did really like it when I had it. I'm not sure. I really think the reason that I got rid of it is because I just felt like maybe it wasn't for me. But my logic of reacquiring it is that, you know, there actually is a person that is, I think she calls herself a medicine woman. She's been ordained in whatever way. Ordained might not be the right word, but she has been trained in the Apache customs of her heritage. And she was consulting on this deck. I mean, there's like 4 names on this deck. And and I really like the vibes of this Oracle deck. And I'm using it for personal daily card draws right now. And I'm really enjoying it a lot. It's the only Colette Baron Reid deck that I have ever purchased. And I've purchased it twice now. So hopefully I'll keep it this time since I am obviously very drawn to it. So there you go. That I just acquired, like I've only had it for like 3 days. So now we come to yesterday. Yesterday I received 2 more decks. Tarot del Fuego, which I'm very excited to work with. It immediately became my daily draw deck, as you can see examples of it here on this little card stand. Here are the backs. It's got a ton of eyeballs. I feel like this should be the official sanctioned deck to use with the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, because of the eyeballs and because of how overstimulating the artwork is. But it's very interesting and I love it so much already. I've had it in my possession for not even 12 hours. Well, yeah, maybe about 12 hours at this point, because I came home to it having arrived. I came home late last night because I hang out with my mom every Thursday night, and I didn't come home until close to midnight, and it had been delivered obviously much earlier than midnight, but I ripped it out of the package after midnight last night and looked through it, and it was immediate love, you know. I can't believe, like, I kind of knew that this deck existed, but it was one of those, like, I hadn't actually wrapped my head around what it was. And it was only $11. And it's just this cute little baby. I don't have oh yes, I do have a full size. Just to give you a little size comparison. It's fully like half an inch smaller on the side and the top. Or maybe not quite half an inch. That might be more like 1/4 of an inch. Hold on, I have a measuring device. Hold on. Yeah, it's more like a little over 1/4 of an inch smaller on the side and the top. Anyway, I am loving this, but obviously I've had it very, very little time. But so far, I love it. So far, it's just so bonkers and so good. And such a joy to shuffle. I mean, I'm not usually into like little decks, but it's a joy to shuffle. It's just like this little baby. And it's already starting to get a little bit of a bend. So whatever, that's going to happen. there's that. Then the last deck, I mean, it was actually in the same package as my Tarot del Fuego, which, let me put the box back where it goes, okay? I got Tattoo Tarot by Megamundon. I am returning this one. So I've already like put the little sleeve back on it and everything. I mean, but whatever. I'm showing off decks that I've bought this month, so I might as well show it to you guys. The cardstock is very thick, but it is flexible, so it is shuffleable. I do like the sort of Marseille style, like the swords in particular. I am in love with the swords. I really am. And I do like this style of art. I didn't used to, like when I first started getting tattoos, I fucking hated like traditional style tattoos, but now I love it. But there are images like this, to me does not look like a traditional tattoo style. This does. This kind of does. So it just like, there's subtle things about it that I don't like. And okay, if you have this deck and you love it, please skip forward until you see that I'm not talking about this deck anymore. See that this deck is no longer in frame. Because this deck has a tiny little detail, and I realize it's very nitpicky, but it has this tiny detail that I am not good at looking past. So if you can see this sort of like grease spot pattern on the outside the border here on the card, it's on every single card in the exact same spot. This is one of the reasons why I couldn't vibe with Antique Anatomy. Because I hate that shit. Like if you're going to do an antiquing effect on cards, it better be different on every single card. And if you don't have what it takes to do that, skip it. That's my opinion on that. A lot of people aren't even going to notice something like that, but I do. It's just this overall effect that's on the cards in the background that's on every single card. And my eye just goes to it every time. It just goes right to it. And no one mentioned that in any flip throughs. And it's because I'm sure other people don't fucking notice it. I realize it's a nitpicky detail. There are so many good things about this deck. Like, I don't want to hate on it. But, I mean, like, look at this. I mean, there's symbolism. These are definitely pips with feeling. I do not like this, like, muscly baby situation. Like, baby on a horse, fine. Don't love it. But if you're a muscly baby on a horse, fuck off. Or if you're just a muscly baby in general. I don't like cherubs. I don't like muscly babies. No, thank you. But overall, I think this deck is beautiful. And I think it's well done. Like peace sign for the 10 of Cups. So I'm not even entirely sure that I am going to let it go, because I'm not sure personally, because I've overwhelmed myself with tarot and oracle and just purchases in general. Because beyond these decks that I just showed you, all of these decks that I just showed you, how many were there? Hold on, let's count. Margaret Peterson, Cosmic Tribe, Voyager, Feathered Omens, Crystal Oracle, Mystical Shaman, Tarot del Fuego, and Tattoo Tarot. So beyond these 8 these 8 tarot and oracle decks that I've acquired, I also bought, let's just go ahead and, I'm looking at my list of all the things that I've purchased because I've been keeping track this year. So let's see, what else have I bought this month? I also bought, in order to get free shipping on Amazon, when I was buying Cosmic Tribe, because it was less than $25. And I always do that too. I think that if I'm going to make a purchase on Amazon, I have to spend at least $25 so I can get free shipping. So, because I'm cheap. I also bought the Why Women Kill DVD, which I'm fine with. Season 1, I really, really love it. You know, if I ever don't have whatever subscription service it was on, I can't even remember right now. If I ever don't have that anymore, I want to still be able to watch it. If I don't have internet, I want to be able to watch it. I'm obsessed with season 1 of Why Women Kill. So I don't regret buying it, but that's another thing that I bought. I also bought a few different, like necklace chains. I don't regret that, because there were certain sizes of chain that I like didn't have, because I have a ton of pendants, and I'm just like, every day I just decide what length of chain I want, what type of chain I want, and then what pendant I want. So it's just like a whole mix and match scenario every single day, pretty much. So I don't regret that. I also bought a Kindle. I don't have that yet. And I was able to trade in my old Kindle and get like a credit for the trade-in, and also some additional stuff. So it ended up, I bought a brand new Kindle Paperwhite for like the most recent model for $80, and it had started out being $160. So like, first of all, it was on sale, and then I had the trade-in, and then I had like some other rebate thing that worked with the trade-in. All together, I ended up spending $80. And I'm still waiting for it, because I don't know, like it was back ordered or something, or I don't know. I'm still waiting. It's not supposed to come for another week or two. But so I don't regret that. But like, anyway, I also bought 2 pairs of vintage jeans on Etsy. And they both fit, and I'm extremely happy with one of the pairs. They're purple jeans from the 80s. And they're like purple Levi's, and they fit really well, and they look great on me. I'm very happy with those. And then I bought a pair of black jeans. It turns out they're a little too big. I don't feel really confident in them, but they're comfortable. So I just might not be wearing them to work like I thought I would. So I also bought several things from Amrit Brar, who made Marigold Tarot, her website called 13th Press. I bought several things on that website. I never regret giving her money, ever. Like, this is a Marigold Tarot thing right here. This is one of the things I bought, is the tarot bag, which I now have Marigold Tarot in. I also bought this lovely candle that I've been meaning to get, that I've been eyeing for years, ever since she put it out. And I'm very, very happy with it, because even after I burn the candle down, I will continue using the holder forever. So anyway, I don't regret most of the things that I bought this month. However, I bought a lot of things. A lot of things. And that's the problem for me personally. And that's what I want to talk about, but I don't even know what I'm going to say, as per usual. So, you know, if you were just here to see what fucking deck haul or whatever, then I'm done with that part, and you can click off the video now. I'm not comfortable with, there's like a constant like weighing of the scales with me between like this sort of like desperation that leads me to buy things over here, and a desperation mixed with a feeling of deserving something that I want. I deserve to have it, right? And if I deserve to have it, then I should have it, right? So that's over here, and that's what leads me to buy. And then there's also, as soon as I actually spend the money, there's all of this guilt and shame, and also just dissatisfaction. So it's like dissatisfaction and deserving, guilt and shame, and desperation, you know? It's desperation that leads me to purchasing things, because there's like the FOMO aspect, right, that everybody's talking about right now. there's the FOMO part of it. And then there's it's just the intermittent reinforcement of purchasing things, right? It's just like gambling. And I've said this many times before, but like, behavioral psychology, like the whole thing is like, the reason that people gamble is every once in a while it fucking pays off. And you remember the times that it paid off, right? That is what you keep going back for. And every once in a while it pays off. Every once in a while you get a marigold tarot, for me personally. Every once in a while you get something that you love so much, like a marigold tarot or telesma or even cosmic tribe. You know, I even had, of all the decks that I bought this month, I'm reasonably happy with all of them except Tattoo Tarot. So I don't regret the purchases. I think they're all keepers, but in the long run, they're not going to be all keepers historically, because I have been hovering around about 30 tarot decks for like the last 2 years. And yet I'm getting more all the time, which means I'm getting rid of decks all the time. And I've accepted that that's just sort of part of my process. But I don't like this, I don't like this desperation and disappointment part of the process, because no matter what, it's still me, right? It's still me holding these decks in my hands and me interpreting them through my lens of personal neuroses and psychological bullshit. It's still me. A deck doesn't change me. And that comes back to like stuff that we've all talked about, like fantasy self and stuff like that. And it's not like I literally think to myself, oh, this deck is going to change the way that I read or, whatever. But, there's a lot of fantasy surrounding the want to purchase a deck, the want to purchase something that you don't have. There's so much fantasy surrounding it, and it never fills the void. Of course, it can't. It can't. And I know that, but I'm still so susceptible to wanting new things. And it's so bad that even if I don't want something, if I have it in my budget, if I have money left over in my budget, even if I don't want something, I have a compulsion to use up what's in my budget, which is one of the reasons why I have already readjusted my budget a couple of times this year. Like I started out with, okay, online shopping budget, I will give myself $120 per month. And then I changed it to $90. And then I altered it to where I'm using, because I had the online shopping budget, and then separate from that, whenever I made money from Patreon or Etsy tarot readings or from sales of my Oracle deck or my merch, any money that I made online for my creative endeavors, I could use that money in addition to the $120 a month on my budget. So I've recently changed it to where my online shopping budget is my Patreon income. So if you're one of my patrons, thank you so much. You are allowing me to buy tarot and oracle decks. And I do think that it's part of who I am. I'm going to be taking new things in. I am going to be taking in new tarot and oracle decks. It's part of my process. There's a tide of decks coming in and going out. That is part of my process. But it's too big of a part of my process. When my tarot practice has just become buying more decks and looking at more beautiful imagery, it's not a practice. It's just, it's just shopping. And that's not me saying any judgment against you, because this is my own personal shit, right? That's the disclaimer. For me personally, that feels like just a shopping addiction and not a practice. I want to have a tarot practice. You know, I had this scenario the other day where I was out in a cemetery and I couldn't use my cards because it was really windy and it had been raining for several days beforehand. And so I didn't want to sit in sloshy grass. And even if I found a stone to sit on, like an above ground tomb to sit on, my cards would just blow away. So I had a scenario where I couldn't use my cards. So I just looked to the sky and saw 6 birds and decided that was a 6 of swords because, you know, air and the number 6. And that worked fine for me. And it was just that I keep going back to that moment, and I probably already mentioned it to you guys, but I keep going back to that moment because it's important for me to remind myself that I am the oracle. I am the person holding the cards in my hand. I'm not going to be different. You know, the sort of process when you decide you want a tarot deck, right? You want it. You want to hold it in your hands. Like, let's just use this as an example, because in case I accidentally make you want it, you can find it for like $11 on Amazon. So, you know, you see someone holding the deck, you want it. You want to have that. You want to hold it in your hands. You want to feel it. It's a tangible want, right? And then you buy it, and then you anticipate it. And for me personally, I immediately start feeling guilty that I have bought it. And I've even like ordered a couple of decks. Okay, one. I pre-ordered a deck on Amazon, and then two. In the last month, I have ordered 2 decks and then canceled them before they got shipped to me. One of them, it was a pre-order, so it wasn't going to be shipped to me soon anyway. And the other one, I just canceled it before it shipped. So, you know, it's just like the whole emotional process. It's like you want something, you feel desperate for something, you feel like you're going to miss out on it if you don't act now. And then that desperation, that FOMO and desperation, or whatever you want to call it, that desperation coupled with me feeling like I deserve to have the thing, I deserve to have what I want, right? So that complicated emotional spiral mixed with just like that sense of urgency leads me to buying the thing. And then I immediately feel relief. Okay, I have secured the thing. I can stop thinking about it now. And then you have to wait for it to get shipped to you, right? So then there's the anticipation. The guilt usually comes in shortly, like within a few hours after the rush of making the purchase, right? And then the guilt comes in. And then there's the waiting. Then you have to actually wait for the thing and you're anticipating it. And for me personally, I'll like look up walkthroughs of a deck for the entire like week or 2 that I'm waiting for it to get shipped to me. You know, depending on where I've ordered it from, you know, I could be waiting months if it's a pre-order, years if it's a Kickstarter, or weeks if it's eBay, or days if it's Amazon, you know, but I'm always waiting at least days, right? And so you're not even the same person sometimes by the time you actually receive the thing that you've ordered. Like in the case of like Kickstarters and shit, you might not even want it anymore. And that is usually the case with me with Kickstarters and pre-orders, is I don't even fucking want it anymore by the time it's come to me. And anyway, I don't have any answers because I'm still in the throes of shopping addiction. And it truly is that for me, because I have many times tried to make little rules for myself. Like I even did it in May. It was like, it was halfway through May. I'd already bought like a few decks, and I was thinking I have plenty to work with right now. I'm not going to buy any more. I actually made this like more encompassing rule for myself because I was trying to compensate for the fact that I tend to do this thing where, like, if I tell myself I can't buy any tarot or oracle decks, then I'll just switch to one of my other obsessions and I'll buy like perfumes or makeup or jewelry or vintage clothes or whatever. You know, I'll move laterally to something else. So I tried to compensate for that this month. I told myself, okay, for the rest of May, so I was only looking at like 2 or 3 weeks at that point. For the rest of May, I'm not going to buy any tarot and oracle decks, none of my obsessive things. No tarot and oracle decks, no perfume, no makeup, no jewelry. I think those were the categories. Because those are the categories that I tend to go overboard with. That was another thing that I did. I bought like $50 worth of makeup online, like at the end of April. And then I bought another like $50 worth of makeup in person in Target. And the sort of like acquisition of things that you don't need. I'm just so sick of this process. I'm so sick of it. But anyway, so I made that rule for myself thinking, okay, I'm encompassing all of my obsessive things so that I won't be able to make a lateral move. But then that's when I bought those 2 different pairs of pants. And at the end of the day, it's not that much stuff, right? 2 pairs of pants. It's not like I went like absolutely overboard and bought like hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of shit that I don't need. I didn't do that, but it still was a lot of money for me personally, because I am a very low income person, to be honest. Like besides like having a Patreon, which is it's really wonderful that I get to have that. It really truly is. You know, I make about $100 a month on my Patreon, and that's such a gift. It really is. And if you are one of my patrons, I really, really appreciate you, because you don't get a whole lot for that, for what you give to me. You know, I have like a monthly reading for my patrons, and then I have like a weekly catch-up podcast type thing. But that's really the only content that I provide for them. And they're so sweet and generous basically they're just supporting me being able to do what I do. And it's just, which is what Patreon is for, obviously. But anyway, with the exception of like that beautiful gift that I have every month and the occasional tarot readings that I get to do for people, which I love doing, with the exception of those things, I work 20 hours a week at a library, and my income is barely over minimum wage. Like, I've worked there for long enough that I've been making the most that I can make from this job for like the last 10 plus years, 10 or 15 years. I've gotten like little cost of living increases here and there, but they're tiny, almost insignificant, I do not take home much money. Like, to be honest, like, let's just be totally authentic here, because people are weird about money, but I don't like being weird about money. I make about, 230, 240? About 240. Yeah, I make $240 a week at the library. That's it. I cannot afford the lifestyle that I'm in. And if I keep going down this path of buying all of these things all of the time, and it was a temporary thing, me switching over to, I'm only using my Patreon funds from now on as my online shopping budget, because I really can't afford to have an online shopping budget that isn't something like that. Something that is directly money that I'm taking in for essentially my tarot and oracle creativity practice, because most of my patrons are people that are either friends in real life, or they're people that have come from my YouTube channel. So anyway, what am I talking about? Who knows? But I can't afford to do this. I am going to go broke. I'm going to, and my number one goal for 2022 is not to charge my credit card. And I haven't done it yet, but I have never been able to stick with that. I have, I grew up relatively poor, and it was like always a scenario with my family members, with my mom. The financial situation that we are in is that as soon as we get money, we spend it. Because that's life. You don't really have enough to put back for later. So you just spend what you have, and you try to have a good time with it, and you try to live as best you can on what limited funds you have. And that is a space that I'm comfortable in, because that's how I grew up, and I don't know any other way. But I want to be able to be comfortable with less. I was able to quit. I had like a cleaning job, and I was able to quit it this year, but only if I don't charge my credit card. Only if I can stick to my budget restrictions that I've set for myself. And April and May, I have spent a lot of money, and I haven't gone outside my guidelines, but I keep like manipulating my guidelines so that I don't go outside them, So I'm definitely being squirrely. I'm being squirrely in order to spend money, and I'm definitely not, my number one goal for 2022, it's twofold. Do not charge your credit card. Learn to live within your fucking means, bitch. And I haven't charged my credit card yet, but I'm not living within my means yet either. And so it's not working. My strategies, I've made progress. I need to accept that I've made progress, but it's not working when I'm spending hundreds of dollars every month on tarot and oracle decks. It's not working when I'm considering spending, whenever I fall in love with an out of print deck, and I try to find ways to finagle, how can I do this because I want this thing, and it's this bargaining, how can I figure out how to buy this super fucking expensive thing because I deserve it, right? Well, sure, I deserve it, but it's not worth me having to go back to cleaning people's houses. I don't want to do it. I want my time. My time is more important to me than money. I've always been a person that time is more important to me than money. And it's why I have a 20-hour-a-week job, and also I couldn't hack it. I couldn't hack a full-time job. This is me defining myself and no one else. I do think of myself as a low-functioning person. I am neurodivergent, and it's actually I think the stat is 85% of autistic people cannot hold down full-time jobs. Or jobs at all. I don't know exactly the parameters of this particular statistic. So yeah, I'm not the person to go to about facts about statistics, but so I'm actually one of the few people. I've had a steady job at a public library. Yes, it's only part-time, but I've had that for the last 18 years. And it's really important to me that I keep that job. But sometimes I can't even handle that. Sometimes I can't even handle 20 hours a week, you guys. And that's just the truth. And so if I'm going to continue having the life that I want, wherein I don't have to have a full-time job, I don't have to clean people's fucking houses for a living, because I did that for over a decade, and I don't want to go back. I was doing that to supplement my income at the library. And I can actually afford my life, but only if I stop buying so many things online. And that's just it. That's it. And it's so difficult to achieve, to break the addiction. It's so hard. And I've made some progress, but overall it's an ebb and flow. Some months I purchase 10 decks, and I can't do that. I cannot afford that. And anyway, sorry, I'm it's just a struggle that I'm going through, and I wanted to share it because I know that other people are in similar places, and I haven't figured it out yet. If I ever do figure out, like, you know, some real tips and tricks to help you guys if you're in a similar situation, of course I will share that. Unfortunately, I feel like I might have to pull back from, like, I might have to unsubscribe from a lot of other tarot YouTubers if they tend to focus on a lot of new decks. And I'm one of those people too. I'm going to show off a deck that I've just gotten that I really like. I want to share that. I love this little baby. I've had it for less than a day and I love it. And that's the thing, right? Is the intermittent reinforcement. Like, every once in a while you're going to get something that's just like, it becomes your friend forever. But it's not worth going broke. It's not worth having to clean people's toilets. It's just not. It's the toilet part is not actually the bad part. It's just like the whole thing with cleaning people's houses. I could go off on that. I really could. It's mostly like a wealth disparity sort of hierarchy. There's a lot of psychological bullshit between, like, the people that can afford cleaning ladies, and I say ladies just because it usually is, and the people that are cleaning ladies, you know. There was this one person that I cleaned for that was a CEO in the town that I live in, and she had 8 motherfucking bathrooms that I had to clean every week because her child insisted upon brushing his teeth in all 8 bathrooms, and he was very sloppy, like getting toothpaste everywhere. Like, I don't understand. But anyway, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And I'm on a path right now that is going to lead me to having to go back. I'm going to have to learn to live with less. I'm going to have to appreciate the few things that I have instead of constantly acquiring more and more and more. And it's a struggle, and obviously I don't have any answers. I'm just babbling. I'm just sharing a moment in time with you. So thank you for being with me on this moment that has turned into an hour. I appreciate your presence here. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate your thoughts, as long as you keep it cute and kind in the comments. And anyway, thank you guys.